With growing calls to help the climate by eating less meat, researchers around the world are looking at new ways to grow meat alternatives. Well, now 2 Ontario researchers are stacking sheets of rabbit cells in a lab to create a meat that promises more natural flavor and texture. One of the researchers is Ravi Selvaganapathy, a professor in mechanical engineering at McMaster University, and he joins us this morning. Ravi, thank you so much for being here. Please, explain to this meat eater how this works.
So what we wanted to do was to make the process of producing meat more efficient. So what we did was grow meat cells in the form of sheets and then assemble these sheets into larger three-dimensional constructs, which are like slab meat rather than ground meat that you see in the market. And by doing so, what we have overcome is a major limitation in growing three-dimensional tissues.
So let's get into this a little bit, because you're right. There are a number of very successful companies out there that allow for, say, the creation of chicken-like tenders or chicken nuggets or ground beef. You can make burgers with them. But your technique, if I understand this correctly, allows for more complex types of meat with different textures to them.
Absolutely. So the biggest challenge that has always been in this area of tissue engineering has been in growing three-dimensional tissues. People can grow meat-like aggregates where you grow chunks of meat, and then you can extrude them into a form that looks like meat, and when cooked, it becomes fibrous and so on. But that is more of the ground meat kind of consistency that you get. What we are doing at McMaster is to look at technologies that will allow us to grow slab or steak type meat, where you have the muscle fibers, actually cells connected to each other, and fat cells integrated into it, and that produce fat, very similar to what happens in natural muscles. So we take animal cells, and then we co-culture the muscle cells as well as the fat cells in situ in two-dimensional form. And it is very easy to cultivate that in two-dimensional form. This has been a technology that has been available for hundreds of years. But what we do is we make the cells produce sheets that can be delaminated, and then we assemble these sheets. And surprisingly, what we found that when we assemble them, they form a solid three-dimensional structure, much like regular meat.
Okay, one thing I noticed that you said we use animal cells. But are any animals harmed when making this meat?
So usually what we do is we don't sacrifice the animals. What we do is take a biopsy, and then from there we take cells which are fast-growing cells. So these grow into muscle cells, these grow into fat cells, and they are naturally present in any muscle. This is what happens when you exercise, and then there is stimulus to the muscles to grow more muscle fibers. These are the cells that actually divide and produce these. So we extract those cells and then enlarge them or grow them in population and assemble the meat that we produce.
Professor, how long until I can go to my grocery store and buy a proper lab-grown filet mignon?
What we are hoping to do, we've started a company, and what we are hoping to do with the right investments is to get a product in about 2 years or so. Remember that this would be a premium product, but what we have is the capability in this case, because we're starting to assemble cells, is the capability to tune the meat, much like what you see with milk, where you can get skim milk, 1%, 2%, whole milk, and so on. What we have is an ability to tune the muscle and fat content so that you reliably know the content of the meat that you're consuming.
We only have a few seconds left, Ravi, but if you could talk about sort of the environmental implications of this technology.
There are huge environmental implications. Meat consumption is growing over the past 20, 30 years or so. And the land used, the agricultural land used for meat consumption is about 70% of the total agricultural land. It consumes 1/3 of the water resources that we have in the world. So as the meat consumption continues to increase, this becomes an unsustainable way of producing meat. Only 11% of the energy input and the resource input into chicken actually go into the meat production itself. We want to make this into a more efficient process, so greater percentage of the resource input go into actual meat production and consumption, and that is where this technology plays a big role.
Professor, if you're a vegetarian, a meat eater, an environmentalist, a tech enthusiast, you should be very excited about this news. Congratulations to you and your team. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Ben.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.